All right, buckle up everybody, because today we're taking a deep dive into Paris.
Ooh la la.
But not just the, Eiffel Tower and croissants kind of Paris.
Right.
We're going deeper using, get this, Wikipedia
Oh, wow.
as our guide to unearth the hidden stories, the surprising facts,
Okay.
the stuff that makes this city more than just a pretty picture. Like, did you know that Paris is its own department?
It is like a state or a province in other countries, yeah.
Exactly. And geographically, it's surprisingly small.
Yeah.
Like smaller than 12% of Berlin.
Wild, right?
Yet it's the most densely populated major city in Europe.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people in a relatively small space. Makes you wonder, how has the population changed over time?
Well, back in 1921, Paris reached its peak population of almost 3 million people. More than live there today.
Wow, that's a huge drop. What happened? Did everybody suddenly decide, hey, let's move to the countryside?
Well, not quite. But later on, we'll dig into what caused that shift, including something called gentrification.
Okay, so there's more to this story than meets the eye.
Definitely.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's rewind a bit. Paris wasn't always the city of lights and love, was it?
Oh, definitely not. It all started centuries ago with a Celtic settlement called Lutetia.
Okay.
And get this, the element lutetium on the periodic table,
Uh-huh.
it's named after Lutetia.
No way. So, we're talking about a place that's literally woven into, science.
Yeah.
Amazing. What was life like way back then?
Well, let's just say it had a pretty dramatic ending. Instead of surrendering to the Romans, the inhabitants decided to burn their own city to the ground.
Whoa, they went out with a bang. I guess they weren't too keen on being conquered.
No, not really. But the Romans did eventually take over, and over time, the name Lutetia morphed into the Paris we know today.
And with that change, centuries of history unfurled, right? Medieval walls, the grandeur of kings, the chaos of the French Revolution.
Absolutely. And we can't forget the 100 Years' War, which really left its mark on the city, both physically and, in its spirit.
It's incredible to think of everything that's happened in Paris over the centuries. It's like layer upon layer of history all woven together.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just wars and revolutions, right? What about the people who called Paris home?
Right. Paris has always been a haven for exiles and refugees, a place for people from all walks of life to seek refuge and start anew.
Think Karl Marx in the 19th century, or those escaping Nazi Germany during World War II.
Exactly.
It's a city that has always opened its arms to people seeking safety and opportunity.
Yeah, and that mix of cultures has definitely added to the city's vibrancy and its reputation as a global center for art and ideas.
Totally. But of course, with such a rich history, there are bound to be some dark chapters. And sadly, one of those played out during World War II.
Right. To avoid total destruction, Paris declared itself an open city,
Okay.
which meant the German forces could occupy it without a fight.
So while the physical city might have been spared, the occupation brought its own set of horrors, right?
Yes, and what's really chilling is that internment camps were set up right inside the city. These weren't hidden away. They were integrated into everyday life.
It's a stark reminder that even in a place as beautiful as Paris, darkness can take hold.
Yeah.
And we can't forget the persecution of Jews during the occupation, including events like the Green Ticket Roundup and the infamous Veldiv Roundup, where thousands were arrested and sent to concentration camps.
Definitely.
It's heartbreaking to think about the suffering that took place in those very streets, in those very buildings that we associate with beauty and romance.
Absolutely.
But it's also a reminder that history is complex, and there's always more to the story than what we see on the surface.
Right. It's about remembering and learning from the past so that we can build a better future. Speaking of the future, let's fast forward a bit and talk about the Paris of today.
Okay, so we've explored the grand avenues, peeked into the shadows of the past.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the Paris we all picture. The city of art, beauty, and, well, let's be honest, a bit of gentrification too.
Oh yeah, you can't forget about that. The Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, Notre Dame, even with the scars from the fire.
But beyond those well-trodden paths, there must be some hidden gems just waiting to be discovered, right?
Absolutely. Imagine stumbling upon the Arènes de Lutèce, an ancient Roman arena hiding in plain sight. Or getting lost in the secret Jardin Médiéval, a medieval garden tucked away from the city's hustle and bustle.
No way.
And then there are the whimsical Wallace fountains, each one a unique work of art.
You're making me want to book a flight right now. Paris truly is a feast for the senses. But let's not shy away from the challenges. You mentioned gentrification earlier. How's that playing out in Paris today?
Well, the numbers speak for themselves. In 2011, the average apartment price in Paris was a whopping 4 times higher than in Berlin.
4 times?
Yeah. And this surge in housing costs has unfortunately forced many lower-income residents out, changing the very fabric of the city.
Wow, that's a huge gap. But what does that actually mean for the average Parisian?
It's complicated. But what's clear is that gentrification is putting a strain on the city, creating a divide between those who can afford to live in the increasingly expensive center and those who are being pushed to the outskirts.
It sounds like a delicate balancing act, trying to preserve the soul of the city while also adapting to the realities of modern life.
It is. And it's a challenge that cities all over the world are grappling with. Paris is no exception.
Okay, so we've uncovered some of the layers of Paris, from its ancient roots to the challenges of today. But this is just the beginning of our deep dive.
Oh yeah, there's so much more to explore.
We've got the city's vibrant culture, its complex system of government.
Right.
We'll be diving into all of that and more in the next part of our Parisian adventure. So stay tuned.
Welcome back to our journey through Paris. Before we got sidetracked, we were talking about the effects of gentrification on the city.
Right. It's easy to get caught up in the beauty of Paris and forget about the real-life challenges people are facing.
So let's zoom in on what that looks like today. Imagine a city where, in some neighborhoods, the average income is way higher than in others.
Okay.
And this gap is actually visible on a map. You can see a clear line between the wealthier city center and the more diverse, often struggling outskirts.
It's like 2 different worlds existing within the same city. But is that divide only about money? Or are there other things at play?
Well, it also reflects the history of immigration in Paris. People from all over the world have been making Paris their home for centuries, especially from former French colonies.
Right, Paris has always been this incredible melting pot. But are all those diverse communities spread evenly across the city?
That's where it gets tricky. While Paris has a big immigrant population, their experiences can be very different depending on where they live and their economic situation.
It's like there's this tension between the ideal of a diverse and inclusive city and the reality of the challenges that come with it.
Exactly. It's a balancing act, and it's important to avoid making judgments. Different groups within Paris experience the city in very different ways, and understanding those nuances is key.
So we need to look beyond the postcard version of Paris and acknowledge the complexity of life there. But let's not dwell on the challenges just yet. We were talking about hidden gems earlier. What else is there to discover in Paris that you won't find in a typical guidebook?
Let's talk symbols. Every great city has them, those visual representations that capture its spirit, and Paris is no exception.
I love symbols. They're like little glimpses into the soul of a place. So, what are the iconic symbols of Paris? What do they tell us about the city?
Well, the most prominent ones are the city's coat of arms, its flag, and of course its motto.
Okay, break it down for me. What do those symbols look like, and what do they represent?
So the coat of arms features a silver ship sailing on a blue background, all under a blue banner with golden fleur-de-lis.
A ship. That's an interesting choice. What's the story there?
It actually goes back to the city's origins on the Ile de la Cité. You know, the Seine River has always been the lifeblood of Paris.
Right.
So it makes sense that a ship would represent the city's connection to the water.
Ah, I see. It's like a visual reminder that Paris grew up around the river. And what about the fleur-de-lis? I always see them in French heraldry.
They are, and they represent the French monarchy. So their presence on the coat of arms speaks to the city's long history with the crown.
So the coat of arms is a blend of the city's origins and its royal past. Okay, what about the flag? I know it's blue and red, but is there a story behind those colors?
There are actually a couple of theories. Some believe the blue and red stand for the colors of the French monarchy, but there's another theory that links them to Saint Day, the patron saint of Paris.
Ooh, I would love a good origin story. Tell me more about the Saint Denis connection.
So the legend goes that red, the color of Saint Denis' blood, was used on the king's banner.
Interesting.
And then blue, the color associated with the Virgin Mary, was added to the city's flag by King Philippe Auguste.
So each color represents a different part of the city's past. It's fascinating. But you mentioned a motto, too. What's the phrase that sums up Paris?
It's in Latin, fluctuat nec mergitur. It translates to, she is tossed by the waves but does not sink. Or, more poetically, she wavers but does not fall.
She wavers but does not fall. That is so perfect for Paris. It really speaks to the city's resilience and its ability to reinvent itself.
Exactly. It reminds us that despite all the challenges it has faced, the essence of Paris endures. But speaking of resilience, how is the city actually governed? Who's steering the ship?
Right, who's in charge of this vast metropolis? Is there a captain at the helm?
Well, since 2019, the City of Paris and the Department of Paris have been merged into a single entity called Ville de Paris.
Okay.
And at the head of this entity is the mayor, who is elected by the city council.
Ah, the mayor. It sounds like a powerful position. But has it always been this way? Has Paris always had a mayor?
Not exactly. The first freely elected mayor was Jacques Chirac, who took office in 1977. Before that, the city was controlled by a prefect appointed by the government.
So the role of the mayor is relatively new in the city's long history. But what about before 1977? Were there any attempts at having a mayor?
There were a couple of brief moments. The very first mayor, Jean-Sylvain Bailly, was appointed during the French Revolution.
Wow.
But his time was cut short due to the political turmoil. And then during the Paris Commune of 1871, the city had another mayor.
Okay.
But this revolutionary government was crushed.
Wow, so the path to a permanent mayor was a bit bumpy. So who holds this prestigious position today?
The current mayor is Anne Hidalgo, a member of the Socialist Party. She's been in office since 2014, following Bertrand Delanoë, who was the first socialist mayor of Paris.
Okay, so the city has a long and complex political history too. But beyond the mayor, there's a whole system of governance in place, right? Tell me more about how Paris is run.
Well, the mayor doesn't rule alone. There's the city council, known as the Conseil de Paris, which makes decisions about city policies and budgets.
And how are the members of the city council chosen? Are they elected by the people?
They are. The city is divided into 20 districts, called arrondissements,
Okay.
and each one elects a certain number of council members. The elections happen every 6 years, and the last one was in 2020.
So it's a system that makes sure all parts of the city are represented. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What are some of the big issues the city councils are dealing with these days?
Well, given those challenges we discussed, things like affordable housing, social integration, and sustainable development are high on the list.
It sounds like they have a lot on their plate. But knowing Paris, they'll probably tackle those issues with creativity and innovation.
Right.
After all, this is a city that's always been at the forefront of change and progress.
Yes, and a city that's constantly reinventing itself, trying to balance its history with its future. Speaking of reinvention, let's talk culture. Paris is famous for its vibrant and diverse arts scene.
Absolutely. It's a city that just oozes creativity. From world-class museums and theaters to bustling street markets and hidden artistic gems, there's something for everyone. But with so much to see and do, where do we even begin?
Well, we could start with the theater. Paris is home to some of the most prestigious and historic theaters in the world, like the Comédie Française, which has been entertaining audiences since the 17th century.
The Comédie Française, I've heard so much about it. What makes it so special?
It's known for its classical repertoire, its incredible actors, and its beautiful theater. It's a true institution.
Okay, that's definitely going on my list. But what about those of us who prefer a more modern theatrical experience?
Don't worry, Paris has something for everyone. There's the Théâtre des Champs-Élysées, a stunning example of Art Deco architecture that hosts both plays and musical performances. And for those who love a bit of spectacle, there's the Moulin Rouge, the legendary cabaret known for its can-can dancers.
Oh, the Moulin Rouge, it's iconic.
Yeah.
But Paris isn't just about grand theaters and lavish productions, is it?
No, not at all. The city is full of smaller theaters, too, showcasing everything from experimental plays to comedies and thought-provoking dramas. And we can't forget about the music. From huge concert halls like the Zenith to intimate jazz clubs hidden in alleyways, Paris is alive with music from all over the world.
Okay, I'm getting serious FOMO over here. I need to experience this Parisian cultural scene firsthand. But before we get lost in the melodies and stage lights, let's talk about another cultural staple, museums.
Ah, yes, the museums. Paris is a treasure chest of art and history, and its museums reflect that. Where should we begin?
Well, we can't talk about Parisian museums without mentioning the Louvre.
Right.
It's basically synonymous with art.
Absolutely. The Louvre is a must-see for any visitor to Paris. It houses one of the most famous art collections in the world.
Wow.
From ancient Egyptian artifacts to masterpieces of Renaissance painting, its collection spans centuries and continents.
And it's not just the art that's impressive,
Yeah.
right? The building itself is a masterpiece.
Absolutely. The Louvre Palace is a magnificent example of French architecture. And its glass pyramid, designed by IMP, has become a symbol of the museum itself.
It's like a modern creation standing alongside the grandeur of history. I love that. But the Louvre isn't the only museum worth visiting, right? What other gems should we add to our list?
For those who love Impressionist art, the Musée d'Orsay is a must. It's housed in a former railway station, and its collection features iconic works by artists like Monet, Renoir, and Degas.
Oh, I've always loved Impressionism. The way they captured light and movement is incredible. But what about those of us who are more into modern and contemporary art?
Then the Centre Pompidou is the place to be.
Oh.
Its striking design, with everything on the outside, is a work of art itself.
Cool.
And its collection features masterpieces of modern and contemporary art.
It's like the building is making an artistic statement.
I love it.
What about those of us who are fascinated by history and culture? Which museums would you recommend?
For a journey through the Middle Ages, the Musée National du Moyen Âge, housed in the Hôtel de Cluny, is a must-see.
Okay.
And for those who want to explore the world of Picasso, the Musée Picasso, located in a beautiful 17th century mansion, is a real gem.
I'm starting to feel overwhelmed by all these amazing museums. How will we ever see them all?
Don't worry, that's the beauty of Paris. There's always something new to discover, no matter how many times you visit.
Well said. It's a city that rewards exploration and curiosity. But before we get too lost in the museum maze, let's step back and admire the city's amazing architecture. What architectural treasures should we look out for?
Yes, the architecture. Paris is a city where different architectural styles blend seamlessly, from the grandeur of its Gothic cathedrals to the elegance of its Haussmannian boulevards.
It's like a living timeline of architectural history. But with so many iconic structures, where do we even start?
We could start with the bridges. The Seine River is the heart of Paris, and its bridges are not only functional, but works of art too. Each one has its own history and design. From the historic Pont Neuf, the oldest bridge in the city, to the modern Passerelle Simone de Beauvoir, a sleek pedestrian bridge that seems to float over the water.
Okay, so stroll along the Seine, checking out the bridges, is a must-do. But what about the buildings themselves? What architectural treasures should we look for?
No trip to Paris is complete without seeing Notre Dame Cathedral, a masterpiece of Gothic architecture that's been a symbol of the city's soul for centuries. And of course, there's the Eiffel Tower, that iconic structure that dominates the Parisian skyline.
Oh, the Eiffel Tower. It's like a giant steel sculpture. But beyond those landmarks, what other architectural gems are waiting to be discovered?
For those who love the opulence of the French monarchy, the Palace of Versailles, just outside of Paris, is a must-see. Its lavish rooms and sprawling gardens offer a glimpse into the extravagant lifestyle of the French court.
I can picture myself strolling through those gardens pretending to be Marie Antoinette. But let's not forget the hidden architectural treasures within the city itself.
Absolutely. Tucked away in the Marais district is the Place des Vosges, a perfectly symmetrical square surrounded by elegant 17th century mansions. And for a taste of Art Deco splendor, visit the Grand Rex Cinema, a true architectural marvel that transports you back to the golden age of Hollywood.
I'm starting to feel like we need a whole month just to appreciate the architecture. But before we get too lost in the architectural wonders, let's take a break and explore the city's green spaces.
Ah, yes, the parks and gardens. Even in a bustling city like Paris, there are peaceful pockets of nature to be found.
That's right, Paris is more than just concrete and cobblestones. What are some of the must-visit green spaces in the city?
For a classic Parisian park experience, you can't beat the Jardin du Luxembourg. Its formal gardens, tree-lined walkways, and charming fountains offer a tranquil escape from the busy city.
I can just picture myself having a picnic under the trees, reading a book, and enjoying the Parisian sunshine. But Paris isn't just about grand parks and perfectly manicured gardens, is it?
No, not at all. You'll find charming squares all over the city, like the Place des Vosges, and hidden gardens like the Jardin Anne Frank, a peaceful oasis in the Marais district.
Okay, so there are plenty of opportunities to escape the urban jungle, even in the heart of Paris. But before we get lost in the green spaces, let's explore another fascinating side of Parisian life: the food.
Ah, yes, the food. Paris is a foodie's paradise, known for its incredible cuisine, its charming cafes, and its lively street food scene.
It's a city that makes your mouth water. But with so many delicious options, where do we even start?
We could start with the classic Parisian brasserie. It's a quintessential dining experience that offers traditional French dishes in a lively and friendly atmosphere.
Oh, I love brasseries. The energy, the buzz, the smells. It's an experience in itself. What are some must-try dishes for those who want to taste the real flavors of Paris?
Well, you can't go wrong with steak frites, a perfectly grilled steak with crispy fries. And for the more adventurous, try escargots, snails cooked in garlic butter and herbs.
Okay, I'm adventurous, but maybe not that adventurous. But beyond the classic dishes, what are some of the food trends happening in Paris these days?
There's a growing focus on fresh, seasonal ingredients and traditional cooking methods. And of course, Paris is a mix of cultures, so you'll find culinary influences from all over the world, from Vietnamese pho to Moroccan tagines.
It sounds like a real feast for the senses. But Paris isn't just about fancy restaurants and elaborate meals, right?
No, not at all. One of the joys of Paris is its vibrant cafe culture.
Right.
Picture yourself sitting at a sidewalk cafe, sipping a café au lait and watching the world go by, or enjoying a freshly baked croissant at a local patisserie.
Okay, you're making me really want to go to Paris. But before we get too carried away with daydreams of croissants and cafes, let's talk about another essential part of Parisian life: shopping.
Ah, yes, shopping. Paris is a shopper's dream, known for its chic boutiques, its grand department stores, and its bustling street markets.
It's a city with something for everyone, no matter your budget. But with so much to choose from, where do we even start?
For a truly Parisian shopping experience, head to the grand department stores like Galeries Lafayette and Printemps. Their luxurious interiors, their wide selection of goods, and their iconic rooftop views make them destinations in themselves.
I've always wanted to visit those department stores. It's like stepping into a world of luxury. But Paris isn't just about designer labels and high-end fashion, is it?
No, not at all. The city is also full of charming boutiques, vintage shops, and independent designers. And for those who love a good treasure hunt, the flea markets of Paris are a must.
Okay, I'm adding flea markets to my list. I love the excitement of finding something unique and unexpected. What are some of the best flea markets in Paris?
For a truly eclectic mix of items, from vintage clothing to antique furniture, check out the Marché aux Puces de Saint-Ouen, one of the biggest and most famous flea markets in the world.
Wow.
And for those who love books and antiques, the bouquinistes along the Seine River are perfect for browsing.
Oh, I've seen those booksellers along the Seine. It's like a literary treasure hunt. But Paris isn't just about shopping for material things, right?
No, not at all. One of the best things about Paris is simply wandering its streets, soaking up the atmosphere, and enjoying the city's unique liturgy.
Right.
Whether you're strolling along the Champs-Élysées, exploring the bohemian streets of Montmartre, or getting lost in the Marais district, Paris is a city that rewards exploration.
Well said. It's a city that captivates your senses, your imagination, your heart. But before we get too caught up in our Parisian wanderlust, let's talk about something a bit more practical. Transportation. How do people get around this sprawling city?
Paris has one of the most efficient and extensive public transportation systems in the world. Its network of metro lines, buses, and trams can take you practically anywhere.
Ah, the metro. It's like the city's circulatory system, connecting all its different parts. But is it easy to use? I've heard it can be overwhelming for first-timers.
Don't worry, it's quite user-friendly once you get used to it.
Oh.
The Metro map is color-coded and easy to follow, and there are helpful signs and announcements in both French and English.
Okay, that's good to know. But what about those of us who prefer to explore at a slower pace?
Paris is a very walkable city, and many neighborhoods are best explored on foot. You can also rent a bike, either through the city's bike-sharing program or a rental shop. And of course, there are always taxis and ride-sharing services for quick trips.
It sounds like there's a transportation option for every need. But Paris isn't just about getting from point A to point B, is it? It's about the journey, the experience of moving through the city.
Exactly. Whether you're strolling along the Seine, riding the metro, or biking through the charming streets, each mode of transportation gives you a different view of the city. And with that thought, we wrap up part 2 of our Paris adventure.
Don't go anywhere. There's still so much more to uncover in the City of Lights. And we're back for the final leg of our Parisian adventure. We've delved into the city's past, its hidden gems, even dreamt of those delicious croissants.
Croissants. But seriously, we've covered a lot. But there's one more layer to peel back: the pulse of modern Paris. What's it like to actually live there today?
Because, it's one thing to visit, see the Eiffel Tower sparkle, enjoy a fancy dinner. But what about the daily rhythm of life for Parisians?
It's a different world, yeah. And part of that is because Paris is such a global hub, a magnet for businesses, artists, anyone with a dream, really.
It draws people from all walks of life. But what does that mean for the city's economy? Is it all about fashion and tourism, or is there more to it?
Well, Paris has always been a center for luxury goods, especially fashion and jewelry.
Yeah.
But it's also big in manufacturing. Things like chemicals, electronics, cars, those industries play a huge role.
So it's a mix of artistry and industry. That's interesting. What about the service sector? I imagine that's a big part of the Parisian economy, too.
Oh, absolutely. Paris is a global financial center, and of course, tourism brings in millions of visitors and billions of dollars every year.
Makes sense. Who wouldn't want to visit Paris? But with all that economic activity, are there downsides? What about things like unemployment and income inequality?
Like any big city, Paris has its challenges. While the region as a whole is doing well, there are pockets of poverty and unemployment, particularly in the suburbs. And that rising cost of living we talked about earlier, it makes it tough for some Parisians to make ends meet.
It's a reminder that even in a city as glamorous as Paris, real people are facing real struggles. But how are Parisians addressing these issues? Are there programs to help with social and economic equality?
There are, yeah. The city government is working on things like affordable housing, creating jobs, and helping people integrate. Plus, there's a whole network of community groups and nonprofits supporting those in need.
That's good to hear. It sounds like there's a real effort to tackle the challenges. But let's shift gears for a second. Something that's always fascinated me about Paris is its global connections.
Ah, yes. Paris is truly international, a place where cultures and perspectives collide. You see it everywhere, in the food, the art scene, everywhere.
It's like a mini version of the world where different languages and traditions are constantly mixing. But tell me more about those global connections. How does Paris keep its status as a global hub?
Well, it's a major center for international organizations like UNESCO and the OECD. Plus, it's a hub for education, with top universities attracting students from around the world.
Right, it's a city buzzing with intellectual energy and cultural exchange. But beyond those institutions, what makes Paris feel so global day to day?
Honestly, just walk down the street and listen to all the different languages, or visit a market and see all the spices and ingredients from different countries. Go to a concert and hear the fusion of musical styles. It's all around you.
Sounds like an amazing environment. A city that welcomes diversity and encourages global dialogue. And that, I think, is what makes Paris so special. It's constantly evolving, adapting, reinventing itself, all while staying true to its core values of beauty, culture, and the pursuit of a better life.
You put it perfectly. Paris is a city of endless possibilities, a place where history, culture, and innovation blend to create something truly unique and unforgettable.
So there you had it, everyone. Our Parisian adventure has come to an end. We've explored this captivating city from its ancient beginnings to its modern-day energy.
And though we've only scratched the surface, I hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity to experience the magic of Paris firsthand.
Because Paris is more than just a city. It's an idea, a feeling, a symbol of beauty, romance, and the enduring human spirit.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep dreaming, and keep searching for the extraordinary in the everyday.